abundant blessings. Help us engage in meaningful discussions. We thank you and ask you for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. In your name we pray. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. At this time, under public comments, we have Mr. Rick Ramirez.
To be next, under Section 4, Section 4B, which says, consideration approval of resolution approving the city plan of finance pertaining to the contemplated issuance of obligations.
Page 3. Yeah, I haven't page 3, so they can see it. And who's, okay, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, on that one, consideration approval resolution approving the city plan of finance pertaining to the contemplated issuance of obligations to be designated as City of San Juan, Texas, Waterworks and Sewer System Revenue Bond Series 2018, authorizing the city staff and the city financial advisor and bond counsel to proceed with this plan of finance and authorizing other matters related to the foregoing. Mr. Salinas?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. On August 17th, 2017, the city received official notice that the city was invited to submit an application for funding to the Texas Water Development Board. The invitation was for a project to replace the liner at the Water Plant 2 reservoir. As you all are aware, the current liner has a lot of issues with groundwater infiltration and causing treatment problems at the facility. Again, and then on November 5th of 2017, a delegation of city manager and the city engineer and myself, we went and the mayor went to Austin to speak to Texas Water Development Board about including or trying to amend the current IUP and include a wastewater or a clean water SR project to add a solids handling facility for the wastewater plant or a belt press mechanical dewatering. So at this time, Mr. Chris Vela from First Southwest has a presentation for a financial plan to go out for bonds and submit an application to the Texas Water Development Board for that funding.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Commission, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Vela with First Southwest Financial Advisors to the city. We have been asked to present a presentation on a plan of finance, as we always do. And I turn to page 2 of the presentation under the executive summary. The City of San Juan intends to apply for financial assistance to the Texas Water Development Board. The city is contemplating the following projects. Funding in the amount of $270,000 under the Clean Water State Revolving Fund Program to fund a belt filter press project. Funding in the amount of $6,995,000 under the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund to fund improvements to the raw water reservoir. The city would sell Waterworks and Sewer System First Lien Revenue Bonds, Series 18 and 18A, the bonds to the Texas Water Development Board. The city would offer a pledge of a first lien on the net revenues of the Waterworks and Sewer System as sufficient security in the repayment of the bonds. The bonds would be structured with level debt service payments. No utility rate impact or negative debt payment coverage implications are projected by this issuance. On page 4, we follow it up with a market analysis, as we always do. And if you look at the current rates for a bond, for a revenue index on revenue bonds, you're looking at a 4.04. The lowest that it has been is in July of 16, which was a 298, or approximately 1.06 percentage point higher than it was at that time. Moving on to page 6. If you look at the top left corner, that is the breakdown on the costs associated with the drinking water or the water treatment plant improvements, and on the right, it's the sewer plant improvements. So let's start with the drinking water. On the project fund, $675,000 to fund the project fund. Drinking water load origination fee, that is a fee that is paid to the Water Development Board, $147,000. Financial advisor, $38,118. Bond counsel, $41,500. Attorney general fee, $6,995. Issuance cost, $1,500 for QSIPs on the individual registration of the bonds. Paying agent, $1,000. Escrow agent, $1,000. Fiscal contingency, $2,659, for a total project cost of $6,995. On the sewer, on the clean water program, the project fund will drop $1,200,000 for project fund construction. The origination fee of $21,000. Financial advisor, $19,787. Bond counsel, $20. Attorney general's fee, $1,270. Issuance cost, $1,500. Paying agent, $1,000. Escrow agent, $1,000. And fiscal contingency, $3,599.75, for a total project cost of $270,000. Now, some of the statistics on the 18 bonds, which are the drinking water. The estimated subsidized interest rate that the Water Development Board provides is 1.75, and the first interest payment would be 7/118, first principal payment 1/119, Final maturity would be 1/1/2048. Average annual debt service payments, 19 through 48, would be $299,732. For the sewer plant improvements for the Bell Press, 1.80 would be the interest rate on the debt. 7/1/218 would be the first interest payment. The first principal would be 1/1/219. Average annual debt service would be $54,841. The additional bonds test is 1.25 times the net revenues over the average annual debt service of the parity bonds, water and sewer revenue bonds only. Based on the pro forma calculations in the following slide, the additional bonds test is satisfied. And that is the page on page 7, the slide on page 7. You'll notice that the net revenues are $1,506,000, less the outstanding senior water and sewer revenue debt, outstanding GO debt, total outstanding debt, and then plus the drinking water of the 6.995 and the clean water of $1,270,000. And it gives you on column L, the new estimated debt service, the surplus cash flow, the aggregate debt service coverage, and then the water and sewer revenue bond debt service coverage based on the additional bonds test on column O. Moving on to page 9, in terms of the timetable, 12/12, the City Commission reviews TWDB 218 funding program plan of finance. City Commission directs staff to move forward with funding of the TWD projects. 12/20, deadline to submit financial assistance application to the Water Development Board for both the clean water and the drinking water. First quarter of 18, the Texas Water Development, as a board, approves a financial assistance application. Second quarter, the City Commission approves an ordinance authorizing the issue of the bonds. As you know, we usually come back and we have the rates assigned on the bonds at that time, and they're approved by the City Commission. Before closing, the Attorney General approves the bonds. Second quarter, closing and delivery of funds to the escrow agent, and first interest payment and first principal payment. Any questions?
So all this will not have an effect on our rating for the future? No?
On the what, sir?
Our rating as a city?
No, sir.
Mr. Arjona, on the December 20th, I know you mentioned something about a special called meeting that we have to do, right? In reference to what?
That'll be the resolution for the Belt Press. That's the item that was
Yes,
included here.
it would be for the Bell Press. The Bell Press, if you recall, the last we had, the resolution that was approved back then only focused on the original 7 million. This is before we had the conversation with Texas Water Development Board on November 5th.
Oh, okay.
So in order to, at that time, we were barely submitting the project information form to the state. The state has accepted that already. So in order for us to fund it, we need to adopt the resolution for that additional funding that wasn't clarified in the last resolution, because the last resolution was only for the water side.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item, we're going to go back to presentations. Before we continue, start with the presentations, I'd like to say that over the weekend, we had that Noche de Paz event. It was a magnificent event. It was very well attended. I want to thank the departments that made it possible, Parks and Recreation, IT, Finance, pretty much everybody. Library, everybody was there helping us out, and it was a tremendous total success on that particular event. Thank you for attending. On the presentations, I've got departmental reports. We have Planning, Department of Parks and Recreation, Public Library, and the Department of Sanitation. Everybody's here ready, available, should you have any questions on any of their reports.
Are there any questions for the directors at this time?
On Christmas will be Monday, Carmen, so that day they won't be picking up trash or?
They will be picking up trash on Monday. And on New Year's, I will be sending out putting it on the website and also on the phone system.
Are we paying those employees time and a half?
Yes,
or-
sir. We are paying them.
What would it take, Ms. Carmen? Maybe half a day or three-quarters of the day?
If I work all of them, they usually finish before noon, so they have time
Before noon.
enough to spend with their families.
We got the Christmas party this Saturday,
Yes, the Christmas party will be this Saturday.
so I'll be out because I'll be in a graduation in Lubbock, but at the Raiders. So I won't be there, so I want to wish every employee a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hopefully they can enjoy it because I won't be there.
Also, yes, you're not gonna be there? Okay. Also, before we continue with the next presentation, I'd like to recognize Mr. Leroy Gonzalez. He's been an asset and instrumental person here with the city of San Juan. Ever since the department director left the city, he has taken over the duties. I had just promoted Mr. Leroy Gonzalez from interim finance director to finance director. He has done a tremendous job, not only with the budget, but also with the day-to-day operations. So Mr. Leroy Gonzalez will be serving as the finance director, or Department of Finance Director.
We'll be looking over the EDC also, or?
He'll be working on the EDC expenses and reports.
Well, Mr. Gonzalez, you have been doing that already, right, sir? Okay. How long have you been doing that? Ever since you became the interim? All right, good deal. Well, congratulations. Thank you for all that good work you do. Thank you.
The next item is a presentation from Perez Consulting Engineers on the status of the paving improvement phase #1 project. This is, as you recall, this is the street repaving project, phase #1. We have some pictures on the before the streets were repaved and some of the after. Did we get the video, Mr. Rangel? Mr. Rangel, did we get the video? So that we can see as to what they look before and what they look now. Is that already been paved?
That one's been paid.
Okay.
I can go ahead and get started. My name is David Perez with Perez Consulting Engineers. I'm here to give a project update on the Phase 1 project improvements, and while I'm speaking, you can see some of the streets that have already been completed. The notice to proceed was given to the contractor on June 20th, 2017, and they have 300 calendar days to complete the 26 streets. Today is day 164 out of 300, and I'm happy to say that the contractor, we've got two representatives from the construction company, Beto Garcia and Paco Chavez. I'm happy to say that they're planning on finishing by the end of this month, so that'll put them under 200 days out of 300 days to complete the project. The project right now, 18 out of the 26 streets have been completed. The only remaining streets is Ebano Heights subdivision, and there are 8 streets in there. All the flexible base has been completed. Concrete work will be completed this week, and paving will start happening next week. So again, they're shooting for the end of this month to finish paving, weather permitting. But by January 1st, anticipate the project to be complete. Then we'll do a final inspection. The project is currently under budget, and we anticipate it to be under budget at the end of the project. All material testing to date has passed, and we're very pleased with the quality of work that Earthworks has done to date. And I'd like to open it up for any questions that you guys may have.
I just want to say that I'm sorry, Commissioner, that the contract, like Mr. Perez said, he mentioned that the project is pretty much under the days that they were allotted. It'll probably be 3 months before the contract. So I want to congratulate him and the contractor for doing a tremendous job. There hasn't been any significant change orders, and everything seems to be like on schedule. We have yet to have any major complaints. The only complaints that we've heard about is being the fact that it's been raining, there's been muddy, but as long as the people understand that there's construction in progress, and at the end result is going to be something like this as to what we can see. At the end of the day, it's going to be a tremendous result for the city.
26 streets that were in the first phase.
That is correct. Now, we're shooting to start the second phase shortly by the end of December. Are we receiving the bids at the end of December? January, okay.
Finalizing the engineering. Actually, we have a meeting with the project engineer later this week. The plans are being finalized. Hopefully, early in January, we will go out for bids. And probably in your first meeting of February, we will be awarding the project to the lowest responsible bidder.
On
For-
phase two,
for
do we
phase
have
two.
12th Street there or no?
Yes,
Yes.
from
They-
Nebraska to the east. Yes.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, on the corner of, right here on Ridge in Nebraska, the four-way stop, is that part of the
Phase-
phase two?
That's phase two.
Now, are we gonna do any type of work as far as the drainage in there?
Yes. There will be, it's a different engineer. That's why
No, I know that, but I'm
it's a
asking.
different engineer for that project.
Mhm.
But there will be drainage improvements.
Yes.
There will be 2 inlets added to
Great,
the intersection.
good.
So because of the 2 additional inlets, once the intersection is repaved, and also it's going to be the repaving of Nebraska from Ridge to 12th Street as part of that project. But with the 2 additional inlets, the intersection should last a long time. Yeah.
Okay,
And that's what the problem currently is, that there's no inlets at that place, so when it rains, the water gets stagnant,
exactly.
so.
Yeah, but with the drainage improvements, the water should flow, and it won't stay there, and the asphalt should last a very long time.
How much are we under budget on the phase one projects?
Well, we won't know until they finish, but right now, the contract amount was 1.42 million, I believe. We removed Hall Acres, but we added San Antonio Street, so that brought it down to about 1.37 million. And I don't know then an exact figure. I'd hate to tell you an exact figure right now, but we're gonna be over $50,000 under budget for phase one.
But also, if you remember, the bid came in like 1,000 less than what we anticipated. So we're gonna have, once the project is completed, we're gonna have funds left from the budget for phase one, I think like 300,000, something like that.
We'll have that left over because we have a budget for phase two.
Yes,
So that money will be besides.
yes.
Besides that, yes.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next presentation is from PMAM Corporation regarding the proposed management of a proposed alarms ordinance for the city of San Juan. Mr. Cervantes?
Yes, I don't know if you know, but we're proposing an alarms ordinance for the city. As you may know, we have a lot of false alarms constantly, and that takes a lot of time from the police officers, and it takes a lot of resources. And because there's no penalties, people have false alarms and they don't really care. So the proposal is to adopt an ordinance that will change the behavior of people from, constantly having false alarms. That takes time from our police officers. But also, the police department is proposing for a company to manage the ordinance, because it's also a lot of time and resources to send invoices and collect the funds. So we have a company that is proposed to manage the ordinance if adopted. So we would like to have them give a presentation and see if you like what they have to present. So it's Mr. Dave Moss. It's a company out of Dallas, and he's going to give you a PowerPoint presentation.
Before he gets here, is it only for police alarms?
It's police and fire.
And fire?
Yes.
It's both.
What's, when we say we have a lot of alarms, are we talking that people are calling that they don't have an alarm, or the alarm
No,
breakers?
they have a lot of people have alarms in their houses, and the alarm is going off for different reasons, and it's constantly false alarms. And so because we don't have an ordinance, we don't have a penalty. So the police could be going to this one house constantly, and there's no ordinance to correct. The purpose of the ordinance is to correct the behavior. That if there's a problem with your alarm, that you need to fix it. Otherwise, you're going to get penalized. And there's some state law in regards to that. We can only fine people after the fourth false alarm.
The fourth?
Yes, there is a state law in regards to this.
Do other cities have this kind of?
Westlaco does, and McAllen does, and I think a few more cities in the valley. Yes.
There's several cities that do that, and after a certain amount of false alarms, then the next one will be, there will be a fine imposed to the property owner.
And during a bad storm or something, that most alarms trickle, would that be also in
So
consideration?
that's something that could be incorporated in the ordinance, if it's for that reason, where it won't count towards the fourth. You're allowed to have 4. Is it within I think it's within the year. You're allowed to have 4 false alarms, and in the fourth one, you get the penalty. But that's something that could probably be incorporated.
What's the most you've seen on false alarms?
Let me ask, if we can ask Captain
Yes,
Cáceres.
that'll
Captain.
the captain.
Captain, what do you estimate, Captain, as far as false alarms goes, like on a monthly basis?
On a monthly basis, I don't have the numbers. I know I did the research for the chief and for the company themselves. I believe yearly we have over 7,000 false alarms, yes. And the presentation will give you numbers as to how many alarms we're estimating or we're averaging per year. But there is quite a bit of alarms. And like Mr. Cervantes was saying, with the ordinance, it will change the behavior of the homeowner. Instead of just saying, it's just another false alarm, police came, they left, and they came and gone, it is going to force them to say, okay, there's something wrong with my insurance, with my alarm, and I got to fix it now, or else they're going to be finding me on my next one or the next one. And that's what we're trying to do. And by state law, it requires we give them 3 breaks. On the 4th one, they will be able to be fined. And we're doing it both for residential and business. I believe we found that we have more false alarms on businesses than we do in residentials.
Good evening. My name is Dave Moss with PM/AM Corporation. We're an IT company that's headquartered in Dallas, Texas. Currently, we provide false alarm programs for over 100, 120 customers across the country, 26 cities in the state of Texas have false alarm programs. The largest customer, they range from all sizes, from populations of 20,000 up to the largest in the country, which is a customer of ours, is Houston. And with 2.5 million people plus, you can imagine the number of false alarms that they have. Again, the cornerstone to any false alarm program is a very strong ordinance, an ordinance that has meat in it. State statutes require that you give 3 false alarms before you can charge someone for a false alarm. And so that really creates a hurdle for a lot of cities to give 3. But real quick, I want to go through and at a very high level and give you, sort of frame the issue for you and what the program consists of. As you can see, we use the numbers here for San Juan is over the, if you have 1,432 calls or false alarms a year over the next 3 years, that you would have 4,200. Financial studies across the country come up with a mean cost of about $125 per call. That's for one officer. And you can see dispatch, other indirect costs, the vehicle, the gas that are associated with it, most cities, and I believe San Juan does, dispatch 2 police officers to ever alarm call. Bottom line, 97% of the alarms are false. And this doesn't include panic alarms or robbery alarms, mainly just burglary and fire alarms. So you're looking at about $200,000 a year cost for answering these false alarms. And that doesn't take into consideration that you really want your officers focused on answering higher tier calls of service. So what does the program consist of? Next slide, please. It's just not software. It's really a process that includes a reach out to the community to educate them on why an alarm program is a lot of folks aren't aware that there are ordinances, city ordinances about false alarms. Today, it's a little different. You can go into a Home Depot, you can buy an alarm to put in your house, call an alarm company, and they never either visit the residence or the company. They just go online and tie a telephone line to it, and folks may put in an alarm only once in their lifetime. So this is one of the things that create the false alarms. But reach out to the community, educate the community. It involves permitting, which is setting up contact information for anyone that would have an alarm through the permitting process in the city. It would include the initial permitting itself, reaching out. Some folks still want to do business the old-fashioned way. They want to fill out an application. They want to come to City Hall. They want to drop it on the box, but it also drop it in the box. But it also includes the opportunity to go online to the city webpage, to the PD webpage, and have everyone fill out the information online. They can do it via a mobile app on their phone. But it's important to get the permitting information because, as the captain mentioned, that 80% of your alarms are caused by 20% of your users. And once you have the permitting information and you can fine for these alarms, it does change the behavior of folks and have them be more attentive to the process. Next slide. What the software that we manage, and when we say a full service program, we manage the entire program. There is no requirement for any city employees to be involved in the program. It's a web-based, what they call SaaS, server-based service, to where anyone from the city that has a computer can go online and see real-time what's the number of alarms, how much revenue is being generated by the program, how many residential permits are there on a monthly basis and commercial permits are there on a monthly basis. But the software itself consists of 4 portals. One, an administration portal that allows you to administrate the program, an alarm company portal, which is significant because it brings the alarm companies in to help solve the problem by making them part of the program. And then the citizens portal, which basically allows the citizens to do their business online. It allows them to permit. It allows them to pay the annual permit renewal. It allows them to pay any fines that they have to pay. If they want to appeal a fine that they have, they can also do that online. Also, we have call centers. We have a call center in Dallas, a call center in Houston, and a call center in Colorado Springs. And if folks don't want to do any of this online, they always have the option to call the call center and conduct their business. Next slide, please. Okay, the permitting is basically, it's basic information from the users. We don't keep any financial data on hand, credit card information or anything from the customers. Is if they want to pay their permitting fee, they will do that either online or they'll be invoiced for the permit fee once a year. Again, this is dependent on how strong the ordinance is that the city decides to pass. Next slide, please. Now you can see here a couple examples of invoices that goes to the customer. What the program consists of, before the program is ever launched, we will sit down with the city and create business rules. Every city is a little different, how they want to interact with the community. And we will set those business rules up front, and that's what we'll abide to as the program goes forward. You can see there, that particular invoice is an example of Richardson, Texas, where the branding that the city uses today, the invoicing and any correspondence that would go to the community will have the city brand, just like it does on the city webpage today. Next slide, please. What happens is once someone is permitted, then all their historical data is kept as far as the fines go and how many false alarms that they have. So if someone's been fined several times and wants to appeal the process, when they go online, they can see exactly when those false alarms occurred, whether it's police or fire. Also, there's different ways we leverage technology to interact with the community. Some folks don't want to go online. They want to do all their business via text. We can do that. We also have mobile apps that, if they're big phone users, whether it's Android, whether it's iOS, they can have a mobile app on their phone where they conduct their business. They can conduct their business over the phone. And then from a master report standpoint, you'll see it has the basic information of the address, the contact numbers. The citizens and the businesses will put the contact names in there that they want to use. It's unlimited space for that, especially on the commercial side, because like with fast food restaurants, for example, they have a lot of churn. Police go out to answer the alarm, and when they go to the contact information, a lot of times those folks moved on to something else, but if they have more contacts in there, rather than sit there all night waiting for someone to come out to lock the building back up or anything, there's more contacts for them to reach out to. Also, one of the things, anytime there's, I mentioned that Houston was a big customer of ours, also a lot of customers in southern Florida. And this year, when the hurricanes came through, the city looking at different ways to reach out to the community to update them on the status of the storm and then plans once the storm came through of how to move forward, and text and email to do that. Both the city of Houston and the cities in southern Florida, Miami, and a few of the others use this data. They gave us a call and said, can we use that data to reach out to the community? So anybody that was permitted, whether it was a business or citizens, was able to get real-time information because they had that data on hand. Next slide, please. This is just captures all the information that's on the permit form that's for the citizens and the businesses. Again, the main purpose of the program is to reduce false alarms. Once we can run a report, we can run it weekly, we can run it monthly, whatever the city wants to do that identifies your multiple offenders, so to speak. And again, 80% of the alarms are coming from 20% of mainly commercial, some residential. And there's training that we offer online. You can go online and it provides education and training around how to do false alarm maintenance and things that you can do to minimize the number of false alarms. Also, we can send out CDs to the community on educating them about false alarm reduction. Another part of the program is the collections. And we're not a collection company, but we provide collections around this program. I call it soft collections, basically leveraging technology, the mobile app as an example, to do our collections. Next slide. Is we have interactive voice recordings where if someone's got false alarms, it'll reach out to them. Now, one of the things that we do in Texas, being, the hurdle of giving 3 false alarms before you can charge for the 4th, is after the first false alarm, they may receive an interactive voice recording. It says, oh, by the way, you got a false alarm. You're not going to be charged till you get the fourth, but just be aware you might want to do maintenance on your system. On the second one, they'll probably get an email, and it'll be a little stronger than the first. Same on the third is you've got an issue you need to address. So when they get the fourth false alarm, it's no surprise to them. They've been warned. Again, it's a soft enforcement of the program to reduce the false alarms. Another thing that the customers can do, there's a false alarm, what we call false alarm bot, which is, bot's an IT acronym that basically they can use, if they use Facebook, if they're Facebook users, they can conduct all of their business and manage the program via Facebook. There's an appeal process within the program that allows them to appeal the permit fee. Some cities will pass on a discount to seniors, as an example. If they've been mistakenly charged the full amount, they can appeal that. All fines can be appealed, and an automated process that the city will set up whoever they wish to hear the appeals, and then once the appeal is heard, the automated process will either dismiss the fine or it'll be passed and charged as it was originally introduced. Next slide, please. You can go on, that's just a form. Okay, this is just a couple examples of other cities. I mentioned Houston, the appeals. I know when they started we're into our 8th year with Houston. To give you an idea on a much larger scale, they had about 700 appeals a year. They've reduced that to about 300 appeals, 55% reduction. When we took that program on back in 2009, they were generating about $6 billion a year in revenue of alarm revenue. Now that program generates about $13 million a year in revenue. We get all the data from the computer-aided dispatch system that the city already has installed. So we're getting our data from the same equipment that the police use today and install today on the dispatch side of the house. We integrate with several different types of CAD nationwide, so very consistent with gathering the data that they use today. And I've just included a few success stories. I talked about Houston, but there's some other examples in here of cities that are the same size population-wise as San Juan here. You can see what we do is we leverage the best practices from our 100+ customers around the country, and we can reduce the alarms about 20 to 30% a year. The first year is really focused on getting folks permitted, and then you will see that reduction on an annual basis of about 20 to 30%. We collect 90% plus what we bill. At the end of the day, the city makes a determination. We usually work that for 120 days. We looked at trend analysis, which shows us how many times we need to touch a customer, either to educate them on what the program is, what that specific fine was for. But at the end, the 120 days, the city will either decide to pass that on to a collections company or do what they're going to do with it. As far as how do we make our money on the program, there's no capital cost up front to the city. As far as the implementation of the program, we do that at our expense. We do what we call a revenue share, and that, again, depending on the ordinance that the city ends up passing and how much meat that ordinance has in it, is our share for this size of city will usually run somewhere between 25 to 30%, and then the city takes 70 to 75%. Any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I have a question.
Yes,
You
sir.
mentioned about implementing your software with our CAD software, and you said most of the software. So if it's one of those that, and I, Cap, do you know what CAD, Encode, okay, we have Tyler Technology.
Tyler Technologies.
Can you integrate with
We
them?
already implement with
Okay.
Tyler.
Cervantes, are we giving permits right now, or the people they don't have permits? How much are the permits gonna be?
Again, it depends on the city. Everything we see in Texas, it's usually $10 to $20, $25
That's per year or?
per year. Yes, sir.
$10.
Same, some cities charge a little bit more for commercial, so a commercial will be $40 to $50 a year, but residence is $10, $20, $25 a year.
This will be only residents or commercial persons that are hooked up to the PD with a permit. People that have local alarms, only house alarms that are not connected with the PD, are not required to have a permit, correct?
Some cities take the position that if they don't permit, then the police will not answer the call.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If the residence is not, connected to the PD, where they're not expecting the PD to make a visit to their house,
There's no charge.
There's no
They wouldn't
charge.
permit. Yes, sir.
it's optional to the residents, if they want to get the permit, so they can have the response of the PD in case of an emergency or whatever alarm that they have.
Yes, sir. The other part of, I'm sorry.
That permit fee goes to who? Well,
Yes, everything, any revenue that's garnished from the program. So that goes to the city
so
general fund
you get 25 to 30% permit fee
and the fines.
and the fines.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What would be the fine on the first offense, or let's say the fourth, how much is the fine?
Again, completely dependent upon the ordinance that the city, what
Yeah, I
I see,
know you-
most of them are $50.
$50. Yeah,
Yes,
so
sir.
I kind of remember you said that depending on the meat you have.
Well,
And most of
the
ours,
split.
our residents are with bone, not meat at all. So that's why I'm asking that question, that, so they can know more or less what kind of fine to expect, if it's a $50 or,
Most cities are, it's $50. Yes, and it's more for commercial. Usually it's $75 to $100 for commercial.
Let me ask you, sir, so what happens if I don't have a permit? Because I chose not to have a permit. And then something happens in my house, PD nor fire responds. So who's liable?
Who's liable?
Right, who's liable for that, for not responding to my house?
If you have an ordinance in place that requires people with a fixed alarm, if they just have a siren in the ceiling, keep in mind is the third party here is the alarm company. Is when folks put an alarm in the house and they sign up with an alarm company to monitor that alarm, whether it's burglar or fire. These are the alarms that we're talking about. So what happens is the alarm goes off, the alarm company calls the police and says, we got an alarm at so-and-so. If the police get out there and it says, oh, the kids came home from school early and they turned on the alarm, that's a false alarm. Someone asked earlier about the weather. Is usually when bad weather comes through town, is a lot of alarms go off, but the police will encode, what they call encode the alarms for that night because they knew it was a bad weather scenario and they wouldn't be charged false alarms for those calls.
I think Mr. Garcia asked a question just a couple of minutes ago. So is it mandatory for everybody to have a permit that has an alarm system?
Yes, most cities make it mandatory.
So it'll be mandatory. So
For a monitored alarm, have a permit.
okay.
yeah, that means if they're connected to PD,
Yes.
or the alarms companies are notifying the PD, so then they would be expected to have a.
Right.
Is there any way to monitor, like, let's say the house, we're in vacation, the house by itself, somebody try to break in, and there's no proof that they try to break in, but you tamper with anything and it sets the alarm. Are they still liable? It was my third already, and, you know, I guess your experience through other cities should know if that had happened before or not.
Usually, because you've got all the data and the historical data, is where you have problems is going to really stand out, because they're going to have quite a few alarms. The person's home that's had one or two occasions, you know, whoever, they're going to look at that and they're going to say, well, that's one. So, but it's not till the fourth that they're going to get charged anyway. So they just don't have that many alarms on the residential side if they're taking care of their business. And then with the three, you get to the fourth.
And in the new year, when you get a fresh start?
It restarts at the new year. And also, keep in mind, they've been touched on those first three. Even though they haven't gotten charged, they may be a situation where they have a motion alarm and they have a big dog or something that sets off the alarm. Well, they've been touched 3 times when they had the 3 previous alarms to let them know that they have some issue that they need to address before being charged. Again, it's a behavior thing that, boy, I better be attentive to this because it's going to cost me some money down the road if I'm not.
So,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Mayor.
As far as the appeal process, how long does it take? Like, for instance, if a resident appeals, you know, that fourth alarm, you know, how long does that take? Is it just?
Some cities do it once a week. Some cities do it once a month. Some every 2 weeks. As far as the data's there the day they set the appeal in, so you could do it the same day. Yeah, and it's fully automated process. So those are part of the business rules that we'll set up with the city before the program would be launched, because you know your community much better than we do, and we just want to facilitate what you feel is the right program to have for the city.
My next question is, as far as going back to the false alarm, what else, you know, what other type of unique issues create false alarms? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, in your experience, I mean.
Usually you can, when you look at the graphs through the year, you can predict the seasons by how many alarms there are. End of May, 1st of June, there's a lot of alarms because the kids aren't used to turning on and off the alarm during the day. There's more alarms in December because there's more burglaries in December, and they'll track right along with your crime rates when your crime rates peak at certain times of the year.
And so all that data, the customer gets that as well?
No, they don't get the data. They get their historical data for where they've had false alarms. All of that data is from the administration standpoint, is for the city.
Gotcha.
That's firewalled. The alarm companies can't see data for their customers. They can see the name of the customer, the name of the business, because they want to have access to their customers. But their contact information, address, phone numbers, they can't get access to that data.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you, sir.
Have you ever had a city that goes into a program and then realizes that they don't want the program? Or are we tied to how long on this program, since you're investing your program into it?
Good question. As far as most of our contracts are 3-year contracts with 1-year renewals. The only commitment that we require from the city is 1 year, and then they can walk away from the program if they want, just to recoup our initial investment on the program in the first year. What actually I see the process cities go through is the program is very successful, and cities believe that, well, we can probably manage this ourselves. The issue is the differentiator between driving down the alarms 25% a year, the difference between having a 90% collection rate is leveraging the best practices from all cities. that we see across the country. And that's really the differentiator.
And I asked that question because, you know, that's fine, you know, you have an investment, you gotta make up for it. But also, we got taxpayers that are not used to this, and they must, you know, we don't know what kind of resistance. Every time you have a change, there's a resistance on changing. And hopefully, we don't have that kind of resistance, but you probably have more experience on that.
What I've seen is because of the community outreach, if you do that community outreach, so in the beginning, before you ever launch the program, you put information in with the water bill. You put it on the city webpage and say, you know, we've got this problem, and this is how much it's costing us answering these false alarms. And we need your help. Ask the city for their help in getting these false alarms under control. Is when cities do a great job of that reach out, and that's what we do, that's what we help them do, is it makes all the difference in the world. Without that, the community does not accept it well, feeling that it's just another way to get more money from the community. Yes, sir.
Any other?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The next presentation is on performance contracting as a financial opportunity and technical solutions for the city's utility and infrastructure needs. Mr. Salinas.
Good evening, Mayor Commissioners. Mr. Chad Nobles of Siemens is here to do a presentation on performance contracting as a possible funding solution for some of our infrastructure needs, on top of the funding that we've already been seeking through Texas Water Development Board. So kind of expedite the process. I'm just going to invite Mr. Chad Nobles up to do the presentation.
Mayor, Council, thank you so much for allowing me to come speak tonight. Hopefully, we'll try to make this quick for you. I think I've got about 10 or 11 slides. It should be pretty quick. Down at the bottom, down there, there's a little screen. Yeah, right there. No problem. And you can go to the next slide. So I'm here tonight to really talk about, as Mr. Salinas mentioned, the fact that there is opportunities out there. There's tools available to you that allow you to do infrastructure renewal. You guys have looked at some things in the wastewater treatment plant tonight as one of those. And when we look at cities and we talk to staff, we've been talking to your staff a little bit, they've talked about some of their current challenges. Some of those challenges obviously are capital dollars. We just don't have them available to do the projects that we need done. The other thing comes with staff. You know, you've got a limited staff. They're obviously very busy. Do they have the expertise? Do they have the resources available? They're all working extremely hard trying to do the jobs that they need to done. So when you've got large projects that come up, how do we get them done? From an infrastructure standpoint, as you know, all cities are struggling, whether it's old water lines, whether it's buildings that are getting old, whether they're needing energy cost or operational cost to continue to increase. And let's face it, our citizens want more. They want more services, but they don't want to pay more. And so we're trying to figure out ways and how do we reduce those costs and work through that. Next slide. When we look at a city, we take a look at their infrastructure. And when we look at infrastructure, it comes in the form of, take for instance, water, wastewater, water meters, for instance, water conservation. These are all items that deal with what we see as a critical resource in Texas. When it comes to buildings, it could be lighting, it could be air conditioning, it could be fire, it could be life safety systems, it could be the envelope itself, windows and roofs. From a technology standpoint, there's a lot of discussion about automatic meter reading these days. There's a lot of discussion about digitalization. And can you actually take the data? You just heard a presentation on using data to actually better, that's part of this infrastructure process that needs to take place with cities today. And then energy. Energy is obviously a big resource. It's a big cost a lot of times. Are you buying power the best that you can buy power, and are you using it? So is there a way to optimize these buildings, your plants, the infrastructure that you have? I took a look at your wastewater treatment plant. Obviously, you've got needs there. You've got that's aging. You've got blowers there on the left. There are a lot of more efficient blowers that are available to you to be used. You've got some leaking devices, pumps, motors that need to be repaired. They're just at their end of their life. You got a bar screen that obviously you're trying to tackle some of these challenges. But how do you do all this at one time, right? How do you get through it? We've worked with other cities. We've been able to reduce their utility bill in their wastewater treatment plant 35 to 55%. That's a big number because when you look at a city's energy spend, usually about 40% of their energy spend comes from the water and the wastewater treatment plants, so it's a big number. One of the big challenges we see is water meters and aging infrastructure when it comes to water lines. How do we figure out where we replace water lines? How do we collect the revenue that you're due? As most folks know, a water meter is a mechanical device. As it gets older, it tends to read less. So in other words, you as a city are providing citizens with water, but they only may be paying for 80% of the water that goes through that meter because that meter's not reading correctly. So a lot of times we deal with cities in the utility billing office and their challenges come up with, hey, I got residents who complain about their water bill, but I have no way, I don't have the data to really tell them how they use that water and when did they use that water. All we know is we read the meters once a month and we get the data, hey, this is how much water went through it. So citizens are asking for that data. How am I using that water? Can you help me understand? Do I have a leak? Did my sprinkler system go off that I don't know about? These are the challenges that we see utility billing departments come across. The other thing is, show me some transparency in that data, but also how do I know that it's reliable? How do I know that those meter reads are correct and we're not transposing numbers or doing things? We get a lot of discussions with city staff where, hey, this is a manual device. You're typically manually reading these meters. That costs a lot of money to send crews around to collect this data. The other thing is you get a read and comes in and somebody says, hey, that wasn't my read, so you got to send somebody back out. You got to send another truck. They've got a maintenance cost associated with that. And this whole meter reading process has been a challenge for cities and something they face for years. So we talk about one of the solutions that's available to you is automatic meter reading. And some of the things that people look at is, hey, how do I reduce my operational cost? Meaning the time that it takes to read the meters and the time it takes to respond to citizens' needs. How do we give them the transparency that they want and provide the services that they're looking for when it comes to using water? They want quicker responses. They want more data that's at their fingertips. The other thing that we see is a need for greater accuracy. We don't want to overcharge somebody. We don't want to undercharge somebody. What we want is something that's fair and equitable to everybody in the community so that you collect the revenue you're due, but you're not overcharging or undercharging other residents. And then finally, like we talk about, is efficiencies in staff provide efficient services and effective services to your citizens. That's what we're really trying to accomplish when we look at this. So as we talk through staff with some of these challenges, whether it's lighting needs, HVAC needs, water meters, wastewater, the big question comes up is how do we fund it? What is this solution that's out there? So Local Government Code 302 allows you, this was established back in Texas, probably back in 1984, I believe, and it's a legislative piece that basically allows cities such as you to enter into a contract with someone like ourselves that we take these efficiency measures as we change out a light bulb, as we put a more efficient pump or motor in, as we put a water meter that's now collecting the revenue that's due, we use those savings or that reduction in cost to provide the revenue stream that actually funds all of these infrastructures. In a perfect situation, these projects pay for themselves out of your existing budget. No tax increases, no water rate increases, even no effect on your bond capacity if you're able to finance it depending on the funding mechanism. So again, we can use Texas Water Development Board funds, we can use private funds that are available, we can go out for loans that are available. So all of this comes into play. Grants, rebates. Last night I was with a city and did a project and we actually presented them a rebate check that we got from the utility provider for doing these type of projects. The largest rebate check I've ever done is to the city of Houston. It was right at $1 million in rebates that we got from the local utility for doing projects like these energy and water conservation projects. So where's the money come from? That's always the big question. As you can see from my slide, we really look at a couple different budgets. One is the utility budget. You're currently paying a utility bill to the electricity provider. Ideally, by replacing and putting in more efficient equipment, we're able to reduce that bill so that portion go down, meaning you've already budgeted a certain amount for electricity and gas. If we can reduce that budget, then we can take that bucket and put it over here and you don't change your financial budget. From an operational standpoint, you have a certain cost associated with reading water meters, changing out lamps that break, air conditioning repairs for older equipment. We again reduce those costs by providing you long life, new equipment that has longer warranties potentially or has less expensive maintenance. So we bring that budget down, so all of these start piling into this bucket, and then if that's not enough to fund the project, then you obviously have the ability to pull from your capital budget if you need to. But ideally, if we can produce $100,000 worth of savings, you take that over a 10-year period, you can do $1 million worth of work without ever touching your with only touching and using your existing budget, without not doing any capital funds or passing any revenue bonds or anything else. So all of these things actually fund the project, and this was the tool that the legislator put into place to actually do that. The beauty of this is we actually have to guarantee that. So when we talk about utilities, when we talk about operational savings, if I come in here and do a study and tell you, hey, we're going to reduce this by changing out these pumps or motors, and I tell you that's going to save you $100,000, if I don't save you that money, I have to write you a check for the difference. So we actually stand behind this. As a company, Siemens is a very large company, as you know. We probably have done over $3 billion in guarantees that we have ongoing for projects like this, and we'll talk about a couple of those here in just a second so you can kind of see some of the cities we've worked with. Next slide. From a water meter standpoint, people always ask us, well, you're not saving anything. Well, we kind of are, but we're also capturing some of what we call lost and unaccounted for revenue. So from the water standpoint, you're obviously pumping a certain amount of water out to your citizens. Ideally, if the meters are accurate, they're capturing all of that data or all of that water. But what we find is through a random sample test, a lot of times meters aren't quite as accurate as we hope they would be. They come back 80%, 85%. So if you have, for instance, $10 million in revenue from water and sewer funds and you're only collecting 85% of that, you're losing potentially 15% of your revenue, which is a big number. And we find that this happens a lot in cities. So you capture additional revenue in water sales and sewer sales by simply replacing the meter itself and putting in a more accurate meter. And what we're willing to do is guarantee the accuracy of that meter over a time period. On the operational side, if you're reading meters, doing rereads, doing move in and move out types from the office standpoint, from the manpower standpoint, if we can automate that process to where it's all done without a lot of labor, then obviously you reduce operational savings. So you have a reduction in operational cost. You also have an increase potentially in lost and unaccounted for revenue. The process is pretty simple. Legislation says that you select someone like us through a request for qualifications. It is a process that you would go through or can go through. We would ask you to sign a letter of intent. That letter of intent basically has a small dollar value associated with it for us to do a detailed analysis. It's called the investment grade audit. That establishes the baseline of how you're using energy. So we would count every light fixture. We would audit all the air conditioning equipment. We would walk the wastewater treatment plant, come up with the ideas of where we think we can save money. We obviously establish a baseline of how you're using your energy and operating expenses so that we know what we're measuring against. And then we would present to you a shopping list. At that point, you'd have a shopping list. It would be a turnkey cost, savings, as well as payback. And then you get to pick and choose what you want to do and what you want to move forward with from a project standpoint. So you basically get this shopping list and you can say, hey, I just want to do lighting, or I just want to do air conditioning, or I just want to do the water meters. But the idea is you get to build the project that you want. We're vendor neutral. We obviously don't push, obviously Siemens makes a lot of products and services, but we look at what's best solution for you, and you get to pick the products and services that you want as part of this project. If, for instance, you move forward with the project, we would obviously go into a separate contract where we would execute the work and actually implement the projects that are associated with that, and then we would enter the guarantee phase. Now, one of the things that we have to us is we have, if a lot of cities buy things through cooperative purchasing agreements, through co-ops. Siemens was selected through Choice Partners several years ago to be the provider of these services to cities and school districts and associated. We went through a competitive process. They chose us as their vendor of choice, and they've got thousands of memberships. To join this, you get access to all of their cooperative buying agreements. Choice Partners does. It doesn't cost the city a thing, but it allows you to save time and money associated with putting out an RFQ and having a third party really invested in the process to kind of look and see, hey, we picked out of all these people, we chose Siemens. So you could, if you wanted to, go direct to a letter of intent with us and not have to do the procurement process associated with that. This organization has already done that for you. Couple of studies, and I kind of tried to pick a mix for you. City of Conroe, Texas, we did that project back in 2009. We did building HVAC, lighting, traffic signals, did a big project at the wastewater treatment plant, put in some water meters and automatic meter reading. We've generated over $750,000 a year in savings was our guarantee. We actually exceeded that. We've been hitting around $1 million a year in savings on that project. City of Rosenberg, Texas, we replaced about 6,500 water meters. We did some wastewater treatment plant. This particular project in their wastewater treatment plant, we actually reduced the utility bill by 50% on that plant. It was significant in that. We did lighting in the buildings, air conditioning, put in some energy management controls. We did some water conservation as well. And Bridgeport actually owns their own street lights. So in that case, we did actually street lighting for the actual roadway lighting. We did some automatic meter reading on the electric side as well as water meters. And then we did some other efficiencies improvements throughout. Last slide I think I have is just a list of several of the other cities. Down here in the valley, people ask, we just were awarded a project with Weslaco. We're going to be changing out all of their water meters going into automatic meter reading. We're actually going to be doing some improvements in their buildings on the air conditioning and lighting, and then they're going to look at a two for the actual wastewater treatment plant. But as you can see from there, we've got cities small, big, kind of all different sizes, and all of our clients are satisfied customers, and we would like to, hopefully make you the next one we could put up there.
What's the population in Conroe? More or less, do you know?
Conroe right now has it gotten actually over 50,000. They've actually grown quite a bit. When we did the project, they were just under 50,000, I believe. They've actually exploded with the woodlands and kind of that growth up 45 there.
Was a savings of 700, what was it, 50?
It was 750,000. It's been almost, we've actually generated over $1 million. We've been seeing numbers over $1 million. Conroe was an interesting one. I got a call from the city manager one day. He actually kind of gave me a hard time on the phone. He's like, hey, what are you doing at the wastewater treatment plant? What's going on? What's happening out there? And I was like, and I knew we were working out there, so I was kind of nervous a little bit. And then he just starts laughing. He couldn't hold it anymore. But the utility company had actually called him and wanted to know if they'd lost a transformer at the plant because the utility had dropped so much at that plant. We had actually just switched over the day before into some of the new processes that we were putting on.
And as far as the assessment, is that like basically kind of like free of no charge? You just come in, or how does that work?
Good question. No, we don't do it for free. I mean,
Okay.
There's things
Because
that
I
you
didn't
can't
hear you.
understand. Yeah, if you'll go back to the process slide, if you wouldn't mind, just to show. So what we typically, right there. So what we would typically do is we would sit down, if this is of interest to you, we would sit down with staff and say, hey, what do you want us to look at? And we would basically then say, if you want us to look at water meters and buildings, we would come up with a cost. For us, we're not interested in just doing the study. If you want to just do a study, then hire an engineering to do that. They can give you studies all day long. A lot of times people get studies and they sit on the shelf. What we want to do is actually execute the work. We make our money when we implement
So
the
in
project.
other words, guarantee you the job, and you come to assess.
Right. So what we do is we will actually establish that kind of initial cost. We see numbers from $20,000 to $100,000 to do these initial studies. For us, it's kind of a loss leader. We go in and it's considered a walkaway fee. So the idea is if we bring you back a shopping list of all these projects and you say, Chad, I don't want to do anything with you. Thank you for the study. Thank you for the audit. You would pay that walkaway fee. If you decided to implement just the lighting or just the air conditioning, we would take that letter of intent, tear it up, and we'd move forward with the project, and the cost of that development goes into the project. So it's all rolled in. Most of these projects are financed through a tax-exempt lease, which doesn't typically affect your bonding capacity because they're using the energy savings and the operational savings that are in your budget already to fund it. You could do a CO with Mr. Vela and First Southwest. We've worked with them on quite a bit of projects where they actually do COs or other funding mechanisms from Texas Water Development Board. We don't care really where the money comes from. We just want to help you figure out how to do the best with that money that's available and stretch those dollars.
You said you had a fee for intent, or the money down for intent of doing the project. And then you say you have a walkaway fee. What's the intent fee?
The letter of intent and the walkaway fee are the same. So in that letter of intent, we establish what that walkaway fee is. So the letter of intent basically says to me, write me a letter of intent, and it says, hey, I want you to go do the audit. So if we count all the light fixtures, we'll, let's say that's $50,000. If we come back and have this shopping list for you and you say, hey, I don't want to move forward with any of that, that's when you would pay me the $50,000 associated with that.
Oh, and then, but when we have a letter of intent, you want something down, or no?
No, I'm not collecting money until at the end of the day, you basically say either we're going to move forward with the project or we're not going to move forward with the project. We want, when we sign the letter of intent, the letter of intent has a dollar value and a scope of work, meaning you're going to audit these things: wastewater treatment plant, water meters, buildings, lighting, whatever. At that point, we then engage, we bring energy engineers, we bring our crews on, we start doing the work associated with the process to develop this baseline. That typically, the fastest I've ever done an audit is 99 days. It's usually 3 months to 4 months to go through all your buildings and come back. We go and actually get firm bids and turnkey bids from local suppliers, national suppliers. We do all the database analysis, bring you back a firm, fixed, turnkey price at the end of the day.
That's if you decide to go with the buildings or lighting. We can also go with water, the sewer.
Yeah, you can do whatever. I'm going to bring you,
Yeah.
based on that letter of intent, you're going to establish what you want me to go get, pricing and what you want me to audit and all that. Because at the end of my audit is more than just kind of a conceptual design. I'm actually bringing back turnkey cost and savings to you.
In other words, if you bring us a recommendation on 4 items or whatever, and we only pick one, there's no walkaway fee.
That's
We
right.
have one. Now, you said that Westlaco was putting some meters there, I don't know what amount. Does those meters, is the city pays for the meters, or the residents pay for the meters?
What's going to happen in Westlaco, that project actually included water meters, automatic meter reading, included lighting, some building HVAC repairs. They have a contract with us. So we are the general contractor, we're the engineer, we're the architect all in one. We actually are implementing that project for you. So I'm going to have a project manager that's going to live down here. He's basically going to execute. So I'm buying the water meters, I'm buying the lighting, I'm installing all of this stuff for the city. The city is basically using the energy savings and the increased revenues from the inaccurate meters that they had to actually pay for the project.
How long is the agreement that we will have on this?
That is totally up to you. The legislation allows out to 20 years. Some of these paybacks could be 5, 6 years. Some paybacks could be 10, 15 years. The average is between 10 and 15 years. You have a contract with us to do the execution of the work, and then we have a guarantee associated with that, and we have an ongoing kind of like a small service fee to actually prove to you that these savings are coming through. At any point in time, you can cancel that part of the contract. If you cancel that part of the contract, then your guarantee goes away with us because we have no way to measure. So like in the water meters, we're going to randomly sample and test meters every single year to make sure they're still accurate.
Yeah, when that contract goes away, is there a fee that we have to pay you because we terminated the contract?
No. Because the last gentleman that presented talked about a revenue sharing model. We're not doing a revenue sharing model. If we come in and guarantee you $100,000 of savings and we achieve 150, you keep it all. You get all the savings. I'm being paid as a general contractor almost in a design build type scenario, if that makes sense.
So you guarantee us 100,000 and only 70,000 comes in, then you pay us the other 30,000
That's exactly
to
correct.
make the 100,000.
That's exactly correct. I have to write you a check for the difference.
Mr. We buy water so much, and at the end of the day, do we have some way that we measure how much we buy and what we have and what we lost?
Yes, sir. We're working on that number right now because the report is due to the Texas Water Development Board here by March of next year. Last year's unaccounted for water report was 15%. So we were just shy of actually we were just shy of the 50% of what's the national and state average of unaccounted for water.
And those 15% that we lose is either because the fire department used water for fires, or
It is.
we read the meter wrong?
It is a combination.
I know that taxpayers complain about being overcharged on their meter and, you know,
It's a combination of all those factors. It includes the inaccurate meters, because we estimate right now that our meters are about 95% accurate. That's based on the test that the meter department does. Meter department randomly every now and then pulls the meter and tests it for whatever reason. A customer comes and complains that their water bill is too high. So they pull that meter and test it to determine if it's 97% or less, they take it out and replace it with a new one. But we base the numbers on all the meters that they test. We get a report, and the report will tell us whether the meter was 85% or 95% or 96%, whatever that is. And the average right now has been averaging about 95% of all the meters that we test are to that accuracy. So that's what we base those meter
how
accuracy.
do you read the meters? Because, you know, I seen mine, and once I see it maybe every other year, and there's about 2 inches or 3 inches of dirt. So how do we really read the meters?
That'd be something I would have to divert to the meter department. Those don't fall under my purview, but what most meter readers do is they go out there, they usually have a small shovel or a brush or some kind of mechanism to dig it out at the time that they do it, but since they don't go and look at the meters for a 30-day period or a 28-day period, whatever the billing cycle is, there's debris that does go into the meter, especially if the meter box is missing. If they're in the alley, they're even worse because we do put brush and debris in the alley, and as that happens, they do fill up with dirt and debris. But the majority of the meter readers in the industry carry a small shovel or brush, something, screwdriver, something to dig it out and just get that one reading.
Yeah, because if they're digging it out and cleaning it out to get that reading, they're wasting time also.
Correct.
By doing that, you know.
Correct.
Your meters would you would have more data to present about if they're losing water or.
Yeah, so we don't manufacture any meters. What we do is help you pick the best one that's in the industry. We got a lot of experience with different ones, but most of these meter manufacturers have the ability to show reverse flow, to show a leak, to show a tamper. You'd be surprised at how much theft goes on in the water. In other words, if somebody actually was to pull that meter and leave it out for a couple days and do a straight pipe, it would actually recognize that it got moved and pulled out because it has potentially a pressure sensor or something in there. The other thing, it could be everything, and you're going to get, a lot of these systems allow the utility billing department to see daily reads. So they will know that if all of a sudden somebody's got extremely high consumption or a 24-hour period of continuous water usage, you could, if you wanted to, proactively give your citizens a heads up to say an email, see an alarm, whatever, and say, hey, you've got 24-hour usage of water. Do you have a leak? Do you have a leaky toilet? You'd be surprised how much just a leaky toilet that goes on and off, how much water it uses actually on a daily basis. All of these come into play when it talks about water conservation to revenue enhancement to different things.
When you go to a city, do you replace all meters or just a section that your study tells you that those meters are older than?
So it really depends. In most cases, if you go from manual to an automatic meter reading process, we typically put radios, which is the part that reads it, on all the meters. That's when you actually get the value associated with not having to manually read meters. As far as meter replacement, it depends on what the tests come back. So if we look at a test sample and that they're at 96%, then it may not make sense to actually replace the meters. Or what we typically have done is that we find that the older meters that we know or that we see and the ones that have high volume, because volume contributes a lot of this, if we see meters that have a lot of high volume, we may go through the database, sort it, and replace every meter that's over 500,000 gallons of water and 3 years or older, and just retrofit with the radio on the other one. It just depends. For instance, in Weslaco, we're replacing them all.
All of them. I know that the electric company, they don't go out there and shut your light like they used to turn the thing. They do it electronically.
Yep.
You know, does the water meters will have to lock it like they used to before?
So there is the benefit of having electric meters. You have power source right there, so you can actually send a signal and turn that meter on and off. On the water side, we typically don't have electric power in the actual ground, but there are several meter manufacturers now that actually do have a device that mounts on the side or either as part of the meter, and we typically don't recommend it for citywide, but it's a valve. And you have the ability through pressure to send a signal and basically close a solenoid valve or some type of valve to actually physically shut that water off. It's expensive. We typically recommend them for troubled accounts, people that have habitual delinquent pay accounts or rent properties or something of that nature, if you want. But again, if you're getting data in every day and somebody moves in and they move out, instead of, right now you would have to send a meter reader out to record that data when they moved out. Well, now you could actually ping the meter, see what it is, have that customer pay exactly what their bill is, and then you set an alarm. If anything goes through that meter from here on out, it triggers customer service, and then they can either send somebody to lock or figure out what's going on. So there's lots of data benefits and customer service benefits when it comes to this new automated meter reading processes.
At part of the beginning, we would have some resistance from residents because now you're getting a true
That's correct.
you know, that now I was paying $70 and now I'm paying 90, and you know, but now
It's usually not that big a difference, but it usually is, you know, a little bit. It just depends on how accurate the meters are. But that is part of what takes place in this analysis, is we want to randomly sample. They've obviously tested some, which are notified, but what we like to do is truly random. We take all the meters in town, randomly pick X number of meters by size, go physically pull them. We send them to a third-party testing lab. They test them according to American Water Works Association. They'll give us the results back. We'll share that with staff, and then we build revenue models of what it should look like based on usually a 2 or 3 year average of consumption history.
Questions? Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much, sir.
Yep.
Next item on discussion and possible election on all of the following matters. Discussion and possible action to enter into interlocal purchase agreement with the City of FAR pursuant to and under authority of the Interlocal Cooperation Act, Chapter 791 of the Texas Government Code, and Chapter 271 of the Texas Local Government Code for the purpose of participating in cooperative purchasing for assessment, repair, and rehabilitation services of sanitary sewer system to include sewer lines, manholes, and lift stations. Mr. Salinas.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Today, I'd like to discuss possibility of entering into an interlocal agreement with the City of FAR. The City of FAR has already gone out for procurement for this type of work. In fact, the City of Edinburgh just ended their contract for the same thing. The City of Westlaco is fixing to go or has already gone into the same interlocal agreement. What this allows us to do is to basically piggyback off of FAR's agreement already. And there is a copy of FAR's agreement along with the fees and the cost in the packet, without having to do the additional expense of having to advertise, having to bid, having to vet all the different vendors. It's already been done. It is the project that we are interested in doing, and with your permission, I'd like to begin the discussion with FAR to enter into this agreement.
What page is that information on?
I'm sorry?
The page number?
76. In our packet?
Yeah, in our packet.
Well, on mine it's 76. So.
Starts at 76 all the way to 81, 82.
78, 77.
77's got the cost based on, right there, 77's got the cost set for all the numbers, and the numbers are fairly reasonable. In fact, we just had a one manhole that collapsed on Sioux Road that the lowest bidder was $7,800. This will allow us to assess those before that and do it for basically
Fraction of a cost.
$1,250 instead of the $78.
This would be only as needed?
As needed, yes, sir. Yes.
Mine stops at 75, Mr. Arjona, and there's no 76. It continues on page 107. That information is not in my packet.
Mine's off. I have that, but mine's off too sometimes.
Is it off? Is it in?
No, I got mine, but
Yeah, mine is not,
mine
not
not.
in, not at all.
You don't have it in that?
In this one? What is mine? I want to take a look at it, but it's not on. I'll use, yeah, I'll use Commission.
As we enter an agreement, there's no commitment until we come back and
Correct. I would have to bring the agreement back to commission for final approval. But these are the fixed costs already. This is the actual agreement with FAR, so those are the fixed costs. That will not change.
And
The only,
compared to what you were paying, they're lower.
they're lower, yes. Yes, in fact, I don't know if you all recall, remember, we did a project last year. It'll be coming out of the same funding group. There won't be additional funding, and we'll be coming back to commission for deal. This will allow me to use these numbers and be able to address the problem before it becomes an emergency.
Is there any other questions?
No, go ahead. I'm not gonna read it right now.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a question?
No, I'm not gonna read through it right now.
Not there a motion to approve?
So move.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Opposed, since I didn't get the information on time.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The next item is discussion and possible action authorizing city manager to enter into a contract agreement with Musco Sports Lighting LLC for installation of sports LED lighting in San Juan Municipal Park baseball fields. Mr. Willingham, there's a couple of proposals there in your packet, one from Musco and the other one is from Tech Line. Mr. Willingham?
Good evening, Mayor Commission.
Did you get that? Tampoco.
Hold on, Mr.
Do you have a copy, Ms. Cavazos?
94? You don't have it?
Tampoco.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, before you use the proposals on sports lighting for Municipal Park, as you all well know, Municipal Park has not had sports lighting now for some time. And with our growing programs, as well as interlocal agreement that we are working with the school district on using those fields for their middle school baseball program, we're seeing more and more need to add the lighting to Municipal Park. Last year, we had 65 teams that participated in our league alone, and with 3 fields, we're running kind of tight. So we're getting to the point where additional field space is needed, and these are the 2 companies that we looked at closely. They are both buy-board companies, and the recommendation is Musco.
What's the bid on Moscow?
$449,500.
And
Now, they
is-
do offer a 5, a 7, and a 10-year finance.
And as we're working with the district on a partnership on this, we could use this, if we were to purchase this as our part of sharing. putting-
Yes, exactly. And that's the middle school programs that they've expanded. 1 field would be for 1 middle school, and 1 field would be for the other middle school here in San Juan.
So when you say
and their
middle school,
use.
you're talking about the baseball?
Yes, they do it. They've started a winter junior high baseball program. School has its own baseball field, so they would be using ours during the months of November and December throughout the year for their middle schools to use.
Improvements, we would put the lighting, and the district would help us improve fields and other additional things that we might need to that,
Yes, correct,
with the
Now-
condition that middle schools will use them.
correct.
Can
Yes, sir.
you elaborate a little bit in reference to the financing? Like, I know you mentioned 5, 7 year, or what?
Yes, they have a 5, a 7, and a 10-year finance option. And basically what that is from the time that it's completed, the first payment's not due till 12 months after. So this project wouldn't get completed until 2018 sometime. So our first payment wouldn't be due till 2019. And then every year after that, depending on the time of the.
So if you get a year loan, actually it's like a loan, 10-year that part would, whatever part number, if it was like, let's say 40,000, you had the budget to cover that.
Correct, correct.
And that'll start until the next fiscal year,
So
Commissioner.
fix-
Right.
Yes.
So we'd have basically a full year to plan
1 year.
for that.
Yearly payments.
Right.
Okay. And so as far as the warranty goes, I know, what is the difference between Musco and,
Yes, that's a good question, and one of the reasons we decided to go with Musco is Musco does offer a 25-year warranty, and Musco is a manufacturer of all their pieces, from the poles to the lighting to all the fixtures that go with the system. So Musco guarantees you 25 years, 100%, as opposed to the other company. They use, their lighting system is called Ephesus Lighting, which is another company. So sometimes the warranty gets a little tricky sometimes, because they don't manufacture their own pieces. And Musco is well-known throughout the world, as well as the lighting of choice for our school district. They use Musco lighting in all their fields. So it's a company that's known on both the city and the school district.
so when you say 100%, Mr. Willingham, you're talking about everything's pretty much done in-house, like as far as when we report any, let's say the light goes out or,
Everything is monitored by Musco, from fuses to light bulbs to electrical wiring. If something were to happen, go off, I would get contacted right away, letting us know they detect something. We confirm it, and they're out here the next day taking care of
Moscow
it.
will give you some codes, right, to shut
Yes.
those, if you're not at the park, you might be at home.
Correct.
And with your phone, you can shut the lights off.
Correct.
Another thing is that with those lights, the players will not see that shadow. Sometimes they get a better view at what they're,
Exactly. Their system is been upgraded. They're on their 8th generation now of lighting, so it's been improved 8 times now over, and yes, it's top of the line. It's going to light up. The other good thing about this type of system, we have different festivals at the park. That area is kind of dark. We don't have to turn on every single light pole. If we just want to light up the parking lot to give those, our citizens, some more lighting in that area, make it feel a little bit safer, not necessarily in the back of the park where there's nothing going on. We can turn on 2 or 3 light poles only to give lighting in certain areas.
they gave you an assessment, how many lights we need? You got the,
Yes, it's going to be a total of 10 light poles. It actually calls for 12, but the way the fields are set up, one pole will go 2 ways, so we'll save a couple of poles there.
we're not running into problems that one section will not be lighted enough or?
Oh, no. No, not at all. It'll be
Even?
all covered.
any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mayor, if I may, is that with a 10-year commitment as far as paying back, or
I would go with a 10-year.
10-year?
Now, if we can give a little more, obviously.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
big plus.
The way it was explained, Mr. Orth, the representative, is the 10-year will give us a fixed rate. If we decided to pay up a little bit more, we don't get penalized
Okay.
for that. If it's in our budget to pay more of it off.
Just keep in mind that if we do have that, let's not spend it and save it and give that. The sooner we get out of it,
Sure.
the more that you could probably come back and do for
Yes.
that program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we take a vote on it? No?
Yes, you do.
Are we sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Just double checking.
The next item under appointments, consider appointment of a board member to the City of San Juan Parks and Recreation Board.
I'd like to nominate and appoint, I make a motion to appoint Erica Lopez, who is a U.S. Army retired and was a sergeant in the Army, for the Parks and Rec Board. And that's in a motion.
Second?
It's been second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next item, Mayor, Consideration of removal and appointment of Economic Development Corporation, EDC board member or members.
I want to make a motion to remove Mr. Eddie Garcia and Mr. Ren Navarro and leave it vacant for the meanwhile until we let some other people have an opportunity to put some applications.
If I may, Commissioner, Mr. Ruben Navarro resigned effective day before yesterday.
Also,
Whereas
then
of
we just
yesterday.
have that opening?
Only that one open, yes.
So the removal is just Eddie Garcia?
Eddie Garcia, yes.
The removal of Eddie Garcia and accept the resignation of Mr. Navarro.
So is that in the motion,
It's in
sir?
a motion, and leave it vacant to allow other people that might have interest in the EDC to put their applications.
Second that.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next item, consider appointment of election judges and early voting clerks for the upcoming special election to be held on January the 20th, 2018. Ms. Cavazos.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. For the upcoming January 20th, 2018 election for precinct number 4, 2 presiding judges and 2 alternate judges must be appointed. That is for the actual election, and then we also need a presiding judge and an alternate judge for the early voting ballot board. And then they will select their own voting clerks.
Okay, the question I had last week was as far as the list of the qualified judges for who can run an election, right? I know you had mentioned earlier that the county sent you only one, or?
That is correct. I contacted the county so I could get a list of qualified judges, and they returned my phone call and said that there was only one person, and that is Heather Guerrero, who is out on maternity leave.
Then what is our next step as far as if she's out on maternity leave?
Well, we would have to look to see who else qualifies from the city of San Juan.
Does
To be-
he have to be City of San Juan?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
It's only because the city is running the election, that's why
So
that person needs to be
what about
from the
Ms.
city.
Gonzalez?
Mary O?
Yeah.
Is that Mary over there?
Yeah.
She wasn't on they didn't tell you anything about her? the
No,
county?
not.
Okay, how soon can we?
But there is a training, isn't that correct?
That is correct. We have a on December 20th.
So as long as they meet the requirements, being an eligible voter within the city limits, they can be asked if they accept the appointment of election judge, and they're not, well, certified, they would have to go to the training that's going to be held on December 20th. That's going to be held by the Hidalgo County Elections Department, is that correct?
It's by ESS.
Oh, ESS, okay.
Yes.
And that is going to be taking place when and where?
We had talked about doing it here at the library.
So, you can get, even if they're not already a election judge, because see, typically you can get certified by way of a certain election only, or you can get certified by, where you're certified for 2 years, is that correct?
Yes, for 2 years.
And so, in this situation, our order right now is we're just asking for, you can either go to the county to see if there's any certified that hold the certification for the 2 years within your city boundaries. But if you're not, you can select 2 eligible voters, or as judges, and then they can do the training, and therefore would be certified before the election. Is that correct?
Yes.
But the question is, those 2 voters that we choose, I mean, we still need to find out whether they're willing to do it or not.
That's correct.
You know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is, we need some kind of list of who we need to approach or who we need to ask, like Mr. Palacios, mentioned.
Maybe you can check with the county about Mrs. Gonzalez, because I know she's done several elections.
Okay.
Because we only have a few weeks, and it starts on January 3rd. So
Yes.
we don't really have time to.
And if we need to come back and have a special call meeting right away, I mean, I don't think it'd be a problem coming back, but.
I would recommend that it would happen before the 20th, obviously, because
Because of the
that's whenever
training.
you're coming in for the training, just in case
because whoever you select, if they're not certified or have that certification within that 2 years, it'd be easily for them to get certified by attending the training. So then they would be there, therefore they would be certified at that time. So long as if we're gonna do the special call meeting, it needs to be done, well before the 20th. Now, as far as the number of people that need to be appointed, looking at the polling locations, you need a presiding judge for each polling location, so you have two.
Two.
And then you have an
Early
early voting
votes.
ballot, but this one could be either one of those two.
Two, the early vote.
So you only need two plus two
Alternate
alternates.
judges.
So it's a total of four judges that need to be appointed. Now, as far as clerks, the law will mandate that the clerks can be, alternate
The
judges can be
judges would
clerks.
appoint
That's
the
correct.
clerks.
And they can also, the alternate judges can be clerks also. So, the part right now is that we need to find
The
two
judges.
judges and two alternates, that are willing to serve and that could attend this training by the 20th, so that way we can make sure that they're certified well before the election.
When is the training again?
Number 20, okay.
And just, and I'm sure and I know that we're gonna be looking for, these judges, but there is a eligibility requirement. Obviously, they have to be, voters within the city. They can't be persons that are elected to public office. They cannot be, obviously, a candidate for the election. They cannot be the campaign treasurer of a candidate who's participating in the election, campaign manager of a candidate who is in the election, somebody that's been convicted of an offense in connection with conduct directly attributed to an election, and lastly, anybody who is employed or related by way of second degree of consanguinity or affinity to the candidate, to a candidate for office. So those are the
Requirements.
the requirements, that's correct.
And as long as they're from the city, they don't have to be like from that precinct and,
Well,
Or-
the law recommends that you should try to look for, you have two polling locations, and in each polling locations, you have
precinct 4 and
5 or
precinct
4
18, yeah,
precincts. So you can
right.
try to get
One of
uh,
that precinct.
one judge from that area, from that polling locations or precincts, and then another judge from the other precinct areas. It recommends that, however, if you cannot find somebody, so long as they're eligible voters within the city. So it's not a mandatory requirement, it's a recommendation.
Okay, so then how do we want to approve this? You want to just,
If we're gonna, if the city secretary is gonna have to go out to look for, get some other names or research to see if they're gonna, if there's others that possess the qualifications or have the more experience, then we probably would have to table at this time.
Yeah, and I have another suggestion, and if you do have names that meet they're a qualified voter from the city, you can appoint those names if you want, and if for some reason they tell her that they won't be able to, then you can come back to a meeting so that you could reappoint someone else. So it's up to the commission how you want to deal with it.
If there is this individual that you wish to appoint, or two, they can be named now, and we could verify if they're willing to serve, or even carry the certification.
Oh, I think so we could find people to serve, it's just that, we've got to check with them and see if they're capable of coming to that training. So I would just say to table it and have a special election and try, first check on Ms. Gonzalez, see if she's available, and then see what other names we can come up with.
what Mr. Palacios was saying, that we can approve her right now, and
so wish.
But
let's say,
without names.
Well, you could approve her, right now, name her
Ms.
as one of them,
Okay.
and then check with her if she's willing to serve, and then when we come back for the special meeting, we
yeah,
can
now if she
either
doesn't,
add more or replace,
Right.
her too, if you want to do that.
I think Mr. Rodriguez has served, haven't you served before?
Would you want to be a judge?
Okay.
Okay. What about Mr. Barrientos?
I think, well, let's just go ahead and, my recommendation is just table this item, and then we'll come back with the names.
Well, we can go ahead and put Mrs. Gonzalez,
Okay.
and that way she could check if she's available and do it, and
Go
then
ahead.
with the condition that any additionals would come back and,
Can we have her first name?
Mario Gonzalez.
Very well. And she would be appointed for polling location number 1, and also the early voting ballot board?
yes.
Okay, so that'd be on 2. And then we're going to hold off on the presiding judge for polling place 2, and the alternate for 1 and 2 and the ballot board. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is my motion.
That's your
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
The next item is consider selection and authorizing city manager to enter into an agreement with Spectrum for internet and phone services. Mr. Rangel.
Who's this? You?
Mr. Rangel.
Commissioner, Mayor. This is for the internet services that are currently for the city and the phone services. This is only to renew the agreement for another 3 years.
Okay.
This is the services citywide.
Yeah.
No.
No, yeah, for the.
It is
next-
citywide.
Okay.
So it's just a renewal,
Yes, sir.
same cost, and
Correct.
Is there a motion to approve?
so move.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Next item, I have a couple of resolutions. Consideration and adoption of resolution modifying penalties imposed under Texas Property Tax Code, Section 33.07 and 33.08. Has to do with the Lineburger. I have Mr. Cano here that could address the two resolutions here at hand. Mr. Cano.
Thank you, Mr. Arona. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Just for the record, Michael Cano with Linebarger. As you know, we're your delinquent tax attorneys. This is really just what we call a housekeeping matter. As you know, our services are paid by those who pay their taxes late. At no time do we actually, or our fees paid by the city. So in order to get that done, the legislature does allow for the attorney's fees to be passed on to the delinquent taxpayers. We only get paid when we actually collect from the delinquent taxpayers. We do charge 15%. And what you have before you are two different resolutions, what we call 3307, 3308, and 3311. It's in the form of two different agenda items. But this just really allows the city to impose the fee on the taxpayers. So obviously we can, so what it does, it defers the cost from the city having to pay for the collection efforts, and obviously to reimburse the delinquent tax attorneys. We have some resolutions that were signed by the city back in 1993. But because there was a change in delinquent tax firms a few years ago, we're not sure if there was some new resolutions signed or not. So really, we're doing this out of abundance of caution, just to make sure that the city does have the proper resolutions in place. We'll be taking over complete collections of the account come February of 2018. So really, like I said, this is just a housekeeping matter. We want to make sure that we have the right resolutions in place that do authorize the city to charge that extra 15% to the delinquent taxpayers. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them as to any particular resolution or how they work.
So this resolution is the same that we had years back, or has it been updated?
It's been updated because the code has actually changed several times, Commissioner. So the last resolution we had was back in 1993. It was just, back then it was 3307. We've now have two other. And what the code does is it breaks down the different categories. You have a resolution for the real estate taxes, the personal property taxes, then one for the mineral accounts and rollback taxes. So that's why it comes in the form of three different sections. But this resolution, what y'all are looking at tonight, is no different than what we have done with every other neighboring city and school district. We have these resolutions in place for City of FAR, City of McAllen, City of Edinburgh, City of Alamo, everybody around here. And I'm pretty sure the prior delinquent tax firm has the same resolutions. It's common practice in this. And again, it's just really a housekeeping matter that allows the city to impose that cost onto the taxpayers so you can reimburse the delinquent tax firm.
Is there a motion to approve the Texas Property Tax Code Section 33.07 and 33.08? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next item is adoption of resolution.
Hold on, I still need to approve the D. Is there a motion on the resolution for Texas Property Tax Code Section 33.11? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Cano.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mike.
The next item is consider authorizing resolution for the submission of a grant to the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council and designation the city manager as the authorized representative. This is a grant, Mayor Commissioners, that it has been a problem valley-wide, and I have Ms. Carmen Gonzalez here to explain a little bit more on that, but it's pretty much on the recycling, not recycling, but the cleaning up of the tires that we have valley-wide, and there's the most that we can get on this particular grant is about $30,000. Ms. Gonzalez is requesting that if we get awarded with this grant, purchase 730 cubic yarders containers.
730 cubic yards, and that's the tire recycle. The containers that we have currently are just falling apart. And the way we had we've been having a tire recycle almost monthly. We've collected about $15,000 worth of tires, which is about 10 of the 30 cubic yarders. So I'm recommending, because our containers that we have right now are just not serving the purpose, since we're using them a lot for brush pickup. This resolution is to authorize the city manager to be the authorized representative for this grant. He will also be the person that will be, excuse me, I have to put on my glasses, the person that will act as on behalf of the city in all matters related to this grant.
How much grant for it? Or we asking?
30,000.
How many?
30,000.
30,000. And it's for tire recycling.
Yes. It's for the containers. The containers they're $3,900 a piece. So the qualification is 30,000, but we'll be spending about 27. The rest of the money is to the rest of the money is for a freight, because the freight is expensive also.
And it's a problem, it's, valley-wide, not only here within the city. It's something we need to look into.
The city
and
has
act upon
been
it.
very instrumental in going along with the Lower Rio Grande Valley to collect tires. For a city that is not as big as McAllen, and that we have done a lot of recycling of tires this year.
Okay?
Is there a
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.
The next item on the consent agenda, we have the approval of the following minutes: March 14, 2017, April 11th, October 24th, October 25th of 2017 as well.
Is there anything
move.
that we need to pull or amend? No?
No? So move.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Under executive session, the city will convene an executive session pursuant to the provision of the Chapter 551, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirements that meetings be open, Texas Government Code 550.071, consultation with attorney, and Texas Government Code 551.074, personal matters as follows. Number one is discussion and possible action regarding the deliberation, appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, remuneration, and/or public office or employee, Ben Arjona, City Manager, Texas Government Code 551.074, personal matters, closed meeting. And also, item number two is consultation and discussion with attorney regarding legal issues concerning the removal and/or appointment of San Juan Economic Development Corporation Board members, and possible action concerning the same. Texas Government Code 550.071, consultation with attorney at closed meeting.
Is there a motion to go into executive
So
session?
move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We will be going to executive. We're back on, from executive session at 8:18 PM. Is there a motion to reconvene?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
City
Carries.
Commission will reconvene open session, take necessary action, if any, in accordance with Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter E, procedures related to closed meeting 551, requirements to vote or take final action in open meeting. Item number 1, discussion and possible action regarding the deliberation, appointment, employments, evaluation, reassignments, duties, remuneration, and/or public office or employee by the Arjona City Manager.
Make a motion to put Mr. Argona as interim for the EDC until as needed.
And to approve the amount that was discussed back there. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. On, under executive session A2, we're taking no action at this time. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned at 8:19 PM. Thank you.